Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Green Team of the Legendarium. I'm your host, BefuddledPanda, and I have with me today Spook,
Hello.
Sean,
Hello.
and Seth.
Hello.
All the S names, except for me. Unfortunately, Yeti couldn't be with us today. He's busy enjoying some quality time with his family at the lake. His presence will be missed as we discuss The Veiled Throne by Ken Liu, Book 3 of the Dandelion Dynasty. In this episode, we'll be covering parts 1 and 2. Part 3 and part 4 will be covered in separate episodes individually because they be chonky. And if you've missed it, we have episodes covering the Grace of Kings and the Wall of Storms. Playlists will be linked in the show notes below. If you've been on this journey with us from the beginning, welcome back. We are so excited to discuss the Veiled Throne. But before we dive into this episode, we have a confession. This is not the first time we're recording this episode. Unfortunately, I lost the audio files to our original recording, and so here we are doing a re-recording. Our apologies. We will do our best to embody who we were when we originally recorded, but the reality is at this point we've all read part 3. We won't discuss any spoilers for part 3 here, but we just wanted to disclose that fact. All right, enough of that. On to the episode. A lot happens in parts 1 and 2, but at the same time, not so much. It's a lot of like setup and backstory, and more like philosophical than really plot driven. So here we go. Here's a summary of part 1 and part 2. Okay, so the book starts very differently. We are in a time before the Lyuku have invaded Dara. We're introduced to a brand new character, Gaztan Ryoto. She's a prominent Thane who united 5 different tribes, and it's the night before she's scheduled to appeal to Pekyu Tenryo about granting more grazing land for her people. To escape her clingy and demanding husbands, she has 5, she goes on a run, comes across the city ships, gets into a situation from which Vadyu, who is Tenryo's daughter, saves her only to get into yet another situation. Gaztan is taken as Vadyu's prisoner and finds out about the secret expedition to use the city ships to sail to Dara. We get Gaztan's backstory, how she volunteered to dupe Dathema, one of Dara's leaders that invaded Lyuku. We then get the story of how Gaztan crosses paths with Zomi's father, Aga, through the message on the turtle shell, which that's a whole thing. We can talk about it if you guys want. After the turtle shell incident, Aga and Gaztan cross paths again. They exchange stories from their respective societies. Aga tells a story about Lutho and Tazu, and Gaztan tells a story about Kikusavo and Afir. And in this exchange, Gaztan realizes Aga changes the Dara stories and incorporates what he's learned of the Lyuku. Gaztan views this as deceitful, treating stories about gods and heroes as not sacred, and this causes a rift between them. Gaztan finds out she's pregnant with Dathema's child. She decides to carry the baby to term, but ends up with a miscarriage. However, she ends up losing her birthright because of her decision to keep the child rather than abort it. Her tribe and mother viewed her decision as being weak because she allowed, quote, allowed the seed of Dara to be planted. Gaztan chooses exile and starts her own tribe, and eventually kills the mother and usurps the command of her original tribe. Back to the secret expedition. Turns out Aga has become a respected storyteller, for the most part, among the Lyuku. He was entertaining the expedition with his stories. He tells a story about dolphins and sharks. Vadyu then asks Aga whether he vouches for Gaztan. He does, and she takes him to bed. We're not done yet. Back to present time. Thera and her 10 Dara ships spot a lone city ship manned by the Lyuku. This one was held back from the rest and didn't get destroyed by the Wall of Storms. The city ship launches a Garina fin, Tana, with To'off as the rider. The Dara and entourage scare it away with large kites painted to look like tusked tigers. But they know this wasn't the end. If they don't come up with another plan, they will be boarded by the Lyuku. Thera and Tokvol field ideas from the Dara leaders, and they ended up on a plan to distract the Layuku with a giant shadow puppet show. While one of the Dara flagship, Dissolver of Sorrows, submerges and infiltrates the city ship from below. The plan is enacted, and the Dissolver of Sorrows attaches to the bottom of the city ship like a barnacle on a whale. The plan was to plant enough bombs to weaken the city ship and cause it to sink. Things go awry, of course. A Garena fin is let loose, the Dara operations found out, and all the Marines that stayed with Tocqueville on the city ship die after a hard-won fight. The plan mostly works, but isn't enough to sink the ship, so Thera and Sami come up with a plan and call to the Krubins for help. And they do, finishing off the city ship and saving the Dara people. And then a stowaway is found on one of the Dara ships and brought to Thera. Turns out the stowaway is the mortal form that Lutho took, a young girl who was fed and taken care of by rats as she learned how to be immortal. She ends up learning all the languages, Dara, Layuku, and Aegon, and chooses the name Throyo. As she learns the languages, the rest of the crew also take part in learning the different languages. The Dara entourage make it to Ukuyu. Oh my goodness, this is hard to say. Ukuyu Gonde, and are trekking across the desert land to find Tocqueville's Aegon tribe. They're running out of water, and lo and behold, a light bulb goes off, and they end up drinking distilled pea water. The group finally makes it to Tocqueville's people, but the meeting with Tocqueville's uncle does not go quite as expected. Thera, using her genius and diplomatic skills, was able to keep the peace. Through Tocqueville's mother, Thera finds out about Tocqueville's exile and the plan to marry her off to Tocqueville's uncle instead, as well as the uncle's treachery as Tenryo's spy, basically. Thera and Tocqueville, with the help of his mother, were able to capture Tocqueville's uncle, but instead of killing him, they let him remain on the throne, but forced him to stay quiet about what has occurred in order to not arouse Tenryo's suspicion and buy more time for the rebellion to grow stronger. And at the very end of part 2, we find out that Thera is pregnant. Okay, with that out of the way, let's start with just overall thoughts, because Seth, you had put in our DMs, how did we feel about the decision to not touch Dara for the first 2 parts of this book? Did it land? Were you as engaged as you might have been? And overall, it's just, was the way that this book started what you had expected? Seth, you want to go first?
Yeah, it was not what I expected. I thought we'd kind of pick up right after the Wall of Storms. In a way we do, but also don't. Part 1 is essentially a huge flashback section, like with a character that we don't really know
Right.
in Gostan. At first, I was kind of it was a little off-putting at first, but I got into it. I really like Gostan's story. I like I don't know how to say his name. Oga.
Yeah, Oga or Aga.
Aga. He's phenomenal. It was really cool to get some extra depth for him. Like, he became a full-fledged character for me in part 1. And then, part 2 shifts again, not to Dara, but to Thera and company, like, leaving. And I was really interested in that storyline because that's pretty close to a direct, tie into book 2, the end of book 2. And then, they have like the world's most complicated military strategy ever, part 2, like 6,000 variables. But yeah, it was good. I just initially, I think my expectation was like, oh man, stuff's crazy in Dar right now, and then Ken just shifted us.
Yeah, took you back in time.
Yeah, I got over it. It just it took a couple chapters for it to happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for Seth and Sean and myself who have read Malazan, if you remember House of Chains, how House of Chains starts, that whole first book.
That is similar.
Yeah.
I'll get there.
You are now well on your way. You're what, in book 2?
I'm halfway through book 2.
Dead House Cakes. Nice.
I had to pause. I had to pause for this, but yeah.
We can talk about that after you you get a little further along in Malazan.
I feel like our episodes covering Dandelion Dynasty is benchmarks of or goal. I don't know, of me just like going like, I haven't read Malazan, I don't get this. I haven't read Malazan, I don't get this. So maybe by the time we finish the series, it will be like, I know what we're talking about now.
Maybe. Okay. What about you, Sean?
I mean, at this point I'm well adjusted to Liu's style where he'll take you anywhere, any POV, any time in history, any location on this unnamed planet.
Is that Earth?
Who knows?
A version of Earth.
Yeah. It wasn't entirely surprising. And also you add in the wrinkle that we are coming off of a 10-year treaty that was signed.
Yeah.
So that does leave some room to do whatever, really. I mean, there's not going to be a direct official conflict. But yeah, so it wasn't too surprising, but I did enjoy it quite a bit. And maybe started off a touch slow, but I liked the themes that were explored in part 1, Buried Seeds. And those themes were largely, like we said, explored through Ghost Hand and Oga.
And storytelling.
Yep, which I always love musings on storytelling. So yeah, I was vibing with it all.
Nice. What about you, Spook?
So I have a problem when I'm reading these books where in front of every chapter, at the start of every chapter, it kind of tells us where we are timeline wise.
Yeah.
I don't tend to read those. I kind of skip past them.
You just have to read the first couple words, and then like the rest is like the same.
Yeah, it's
just read the month and year.
I probably should be doing that, but
it would be helpful.
When I started Veiled Throne, I thought we were starting immediately after Wall of Storms.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, where are we? Like, what is going on? Like in my mind, I'm imagining we're in Dasu with Tanvanaki, and like this is a new character moving around like these lamps and stuff. And it took me so long to figure out we're back in Liuku, like a
before
decade
the invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it tripped me up, but that's due to my own fault. Yeah, as far as how do I feel about not touching Dara, I loved it. I think we spent a lot of time in Dara so far. And going to Liuku and learning more about their culture is always cool. It's always fun. And then we do have that 10-year treaty, so it's like, what are we going to do for that amount of time anyways? It can't be all interesting over there.
I don't know. Lots of plotting.
That's for later. That's for later.
Well, I mean, just in general, like you know how Gia is a plotter, and a schemer.
But no, I loved it. I thought it was great. Good decision, I think.
Cool. Yeah, it's kind of hard because as a writer, when you have like so much story, so many perspectives and characters that you want to give to the reader, structure becomes quite a challenge. And we've talked about in our previous episodes how like sometimes the flashbacks break up the momentum of the plot, and some readers don't mind that so much and they enjoy it, and others are like, oh my goodness, not again. I just want to know like what's going to happen moving forward. So that doesn't change in this book. That's still going to be the structure.
About the beginning portion here, how this is structured. These books are obviously very theme heavy, and for my personal taste, I do enjoy theme heavy books, and I feel like a lot of this part 1 is just like neon signs pointing at the themes that will be discussed throughout the book, which I can see some people not liking, but personally, I fully support that approach, like laying that foundational groundwork, and that foundation is like character work and these character relationships move forward, and then how the themes are going to be explored through these characters, and then the other characters that end up coming into play in present day. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Very theme heavy book, and yeah, part 1 is a lot of setup for that. Okay, speaking of themes, what are some of those themes that you have gleaned and you would want to talk about in this episode? Anyone?
Well, like we've alluded to, one of the main character, or perhaps the main character of part 1 is Ghost Hand Ryoto. who is a Thane of one of the tribes. And there's this whole
like the
situation.
Tribe of the Five Antlers or something.
Yeah. But so she essentially gets taken prison by Vadyu because of a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And Vadyu's kind of, overstepping a bit because she's the Peku's daughter. So she kind of has free reign, just kind of do what she feels is best, even though she's pretty young.
She also has like that drive. I've got a lot to prove.
Yeah.
Because, she wants to be like the heir to Tenryo.
Right. And she ends up explaining to Ghostan that like, oh, if I bring you to my father, then I can kind of sweep under the rug the fact that I took out the Garena fin when I wasn't supposed to. So a couple elements at play there. But Ghostan ends up telling a story to Vadyu, and this is largely how we get the backstory. I think it's like how we learn it, the whole backstory, which is that Ghostan tells a story about her rise to Thanehood, talks about Olga in that backstory, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the Olga backstory, or the situation with Olga and her, talks about many different things. But like we've said, storytelling was a big aspect, and what storytelling means to the people that hear it, the people that tell it, how you tell the story is relevant.
Mm-hmm.
So that's part of it. And then the theme that kind of Olga's pushing forward in his storytelling is nature versus nurture, as well as kind of life perspective. Like he tells the story of the whale and the story of the shrimp, and how the two gods embodied one and then the other.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went through life, kind of had a different perspective on their experiences. So the whale versus shrimp setup is a theme that I love quite a bit. Yeah, nature versus nurture, I think, is one of those foundational themes that I was alluding to as far as the dynamic between the Lyuku and Dara. I do want to know what you guys think about nature versus nurture. Is it relevant to the people of Dara more so? Is that something that they have to contend with as far as how they develop as a society? Is that more Lyuku based? Is nature versus nurture the crux of the conflict between the two peoples? What do you guys think?
I mean, if we're just talking about parts 1 and part 2, we don't get too much into it. It's just establishing the initial perspectives of nature versus nurture. So in the story where it was where you were speaking about the whale and the shrimp, Tazu and who was it? Who was the other god that was in there? Do you remember?
I'm terrible with the god names in this series.
It's okay. It's Lutho. Okay. So going back, and this is where it's like they're all so intertwined. So like storytellers, it's in itself, it is one of the chapter headers, and that's pretty like on the nose what that section is about. And then the nurture versus nature also parallels the like classism kind of perspectives. So in the story where Lutho and Tazu have their experiences as a whale and a shrimp, Lutho says to Tazu, "I was wrong, and you were also wrong, brother. The mortals cannot ever become as wise as we are. But it isn't because of their lack of divine insight. The world is infinite, but the lives of the mortals are finite. Nurture and nature are both powerless before all devouring time. Look at how disappointed these souls are at learning how little they knew. It's impossible for the finite to ever discern the truth of the universe in its infinite multitudes." But then Tazu responds to Lutho saying, "To the contrary, I was right and you were also right, brother. Do you not see the wonder in the eyes of these dying bodies or hear the awe in their fading voices as they imagine the world through each other's stories? Though each individual mortal experiences life for but a score of years, they can draw upon a store of stories left by all their forebearers. The race of humankind grows toward infinity, even as the nature of each individual is limited. Nature may describe tendencies and circumscribe potentialities, but it is within the power of each soul to nurture itself for another life, to imagine a course not taken, to strive for a different view. Through that yearning by the infinite for the infinite, the portraits painted by all the mortal eyes may yet piece together a grander truth than our divine understanding. And I mean, that was a lot of words, but what I gleaned from that is part of it is yes, we each have our own limitations because we are only, I mean, these characters can only live for so long, but the things that they learn, the things that they pass down from generation and generation become that nurture for that civilization and help to shape who they are, what their histories are, what their perspectives are. And your question, Sean, of like, does that impact Dara more or less than the Lyuku? I think it impacts both of them. And I think we see that a lot throughout the series. What I would say is right now we start to see the beginnings of it. What we do see a lot is the clashing of both the nature and nurture between the Lyuku and Dara people. And the Lyuku are from the scrublands. They really value freedom. They don't want to be tied down to any particular spot. Whereas Dara is very much like, we want to build structure, we want to have predictability, and they want to scale in a very rigid way. So that's the clashing.
I'm really happy you read that passage. I feel like after reading ahead a bit, that passage is like really settling in more. It might even be like the cipher for the whole series. We'll see. Because I think without the answer to the predicament that's being put forward, I think, is storytelling. Like, storytelling needs to happen between these two peoples. Like, you need the storytelling is the best that we can do currently to make someone else empathize with your way of life and with your story. Really, that's all there is at this point. But Lutho, but before that, what may be a solution is presented. Lutho's like, how can, and it's a harrowing, scary fact that you're kind of confronted with, but Lutho's saying, how can someone truly empathize and understand someone else and their entire person, their entire viewpoints, like who they are as a person, who maybe these people are as a people, when you haven't really lived their whole life? And you live your life, but you're even one person's life, if they're both Lyuku, are largely different. So how can you expect two different people, the Lyuku and those from Dara, to understand each other and live peacefully, coexist, without having an inkling of kind of the good parts of their life? Like, there's just animosity between the two, and having a whale versus a shrimp have those different perspectives for life kind of mirrors that. But yeah, I mean, maybe storytelling is the best way to deal with that. And I'm curious, how do we get there if that is the case?
What do you guys think, Spook or Seth?
Well, I think you guys are smarter than me.
Or you've forgotten it all?
No,
I'm just kidding.
I remember Sean bringing this up last time we talked, and then I just don't think my brain works in this way that much. But it's interesting. I think that, to answer Sean's question, I actually think this affects the Lyuku more. We see that the Lyuku know where they're living, and the life they're living is maybe stagnant or not great, right? Like they come from a harsh place, like a harsh environment, a harsh society, and they are aware of Dara, right, and this place, and they spend an enormous amount of resources and time and people and effort to go there. And then when they get to Dara, they're completely unwilling to adapt to this different place, right? They're trying to
remake it into
Lyuku, which is the same crappy place that they just left for a reason, right? And the Daran society seems a lot more willing to, at least some of them, right? We have examples of others thinking that the Luku are just savages, backward savages, and that's part of their nature. But some of them are really inquisitive, right, and want to. I think they're at least marginally more willing to accept.
I actually disagree. And the reason why I disagree is because if you think about when Admiral, whatever his face is.
Krita?
Huh?
Krita?
Yeah, I think it's Krita.
Kurta?
Arrives at Liuku, right, via the city ships. The reason why the Liuku were able to topple them is because the Dara people that arrived there were not curious about the Liuku's culture. They were not looking to integrate with them. They definitely were looking to, conquer, I guess is the word, but it's more just like kind of set up their own like little paradise with all these quote unquote savages as their servants. So I do think it kind of goes both ways. I think it just depends on who the individual people are.
Yeah, and yes, it does depend. I just think maybe if we're thinking about it as a more societal as a whole, we have very few examples of the Liuku who are willing to adapt any part of Daran society, right? Like, it's just we want to subjugate you and do the life that we were living, but in a place that's less terrible. And Thera is talking with Tokval a lot about this in part 2, right? Where like they're really, the two of them are in this marriage now, are in this union.
Yeah.
And so we have this just like very like, it's difficult for both of them, right? Like
they're trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
How to work together towards the same goals, but from such different perspectives and histories.
Yeah, and it is interesting. The nature of storytelling in this is one that's fascinating to me, and I love that, particularly the section with Oga, right, where he's taking Liukan stories and inserting some Daran kind of like classics into it, right? He's trying to kind of meld the two
and
stories,
vice versa
on the fly, and Gaztan's really put off by that, and he's like, well, like if the message is the same, what does it matter, right? If I change these little details, which is interesting, right? Like we come, at least here, from a society that values writing a lot, right? Like the idea of oral tradition and stuff is not as prevalent in our society, right? And maybe even looked down upon. So it's interesting, right? Like the Oga comes from that society, but he's so adept at the oral tradition of it, and he understands that at a like maybe a deeper level than most, right? That these stories matter, and how we integrate the stories actually, it's like it's the long con, right? He's trying to build empathy, to build understanding with these people through these stories over like a long stretch of time.
Yeah, there's that quote, that saying, the pen is mightier than the sword.
Yeah.
Spook, any thoughts?
Lots. It's just how do they get compiled,
Yeah, sure.
I just want to do that.
Yeah. I think there's a great quote when Oga and Ghostan are talking. I can't remember if it's in a flashback or if it's at the actual like tent where Ghostan is captured, where Oga tells her, I can't stop you from perceiving my deeds through your expectations. All I can do is be grateful each dawn that I get to see another sunrise. I thought that was great, because Ghostan's just getting really mad at him because she thought he was like the truth, ostensibly. Like, you are telling me the true things. But then she finds out she's changing his story to give a different message depending on who is there. And so she has all these expectations for him to be the person that like is kind of guiding her. And when she finds out that he isn't that person in her mind, he's like, I can't stop you from perceiving who I am. I'm just happy I get to keep living, because he's, in captivity, just doing what he can to survive, basically.
I'm curious what people think of oh my gosh, Gaztan's reaction to this, right? Like, she has a pretty negative reaction to finding out that Olga's changing these stories, right?
Mm-hmm. She sees it as manipulation.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I get.
Yeah,
It is.
I understand her perspective. I don't think I agree with her, but I think given the cultural experience that she has in her life, like that makes sense.
At this point, it's Olga's story, so like I get why she feels like there's a level of disrespect there. But Olga's telling the story for a different reason, to make a different point, a different lesson to be learned than what was the point. Than what was the point of the story in the first place. So
Is
it's
that
like
true,
almost
though?
not. I think, well, maybe not, but I mean, if so, then isn't that the more important aspect of the story?
I think it's more that he's trying to make it relatable. So taking like a Dara, like the morals of a Dara story, but then changing the contents in the telling to make it more relatable for the Lyuku people. I think that's what it is. And for her, she's like, well, our stories are the retelling of like our gods and our beliefs, and we tell it exactly as it is. And for her, she sees it as like you disrespect the gods by changing these details and not telling it faithfully like the original.
Which is interesting that she says that, but
Yeah.
that's part 3.
But I mean, it's like if somebody is like a purist, right? And like fairy tales, for example, and folk tales often get retold and modernized and changed for the audience of the time. And whether or not you like it, I mean, just look at all the Disney live action remakes. You could be like, why the heck did they change from the original Disney version? And others appreciate the updated retellings.
I don't know why you'd appreciate those.
That's for a whole other episode. Okay. Other things.
That's like
Anything
basically
else?
part 1, other than like, I guess we can mention that Olga gets, like, Ghostan lands on the side of like, Olga's overstepping here, gets him in trouble. It's also the whole situation where like Ghostan and Olga like save those slaves from like a harsh punishment. It's like a mutual understand. Yeah, it's like a mutual understanding thing. But I think we hit most of the beats of part 1, right?
There is something with that I found interesting, where where they trip over the turtle shell. Because I think probably surrounding this or around this time, like over in Dara, is when they find like the bottle with the note and the fish. Like I don't know if they're exact the same time, but it's
I see.
in the past it's around the
parallel.
same time. There's like the parallel of this god like thing showing up, like this sign.
Yeah.
That is a catalyst for events that continue on. So for Indara, this fish showing up is the catalyst for the rebellion, which leads to Kuni becoming emperor. And then these turtle shells showing up is kind of the catalyst for the Liuku to kill the Darans on this place. And there's a line, I think it's Oga again, where he says, there is a long tradition in Dara of clever leaders invoking signs of the supernatural to enhance their own standing. Which is like, this is like, there's like little pieces of this story that kind of have this domino effect of like this one thing of a leader going, oh, this is from the gods. We are destined to do this thing. And it just topples over. And then it continues on to this huge effect that affects the story even where we are now.
I mean, it really does show that at the end of the day, the two civilizations are more similar than they really give themselves credit for, or they refuse to see their similarities. Okay. Do we want to talk about Thera?
Always.
Always.
My queen.
I was spoiled when we were reading The Wall of Storms. I was spoiled for how that book was going to end because I went on the Dandelion Dynasty subreddit. I was looking for something else. I don't remember what it was, but somebody had posted that they thought Thera leaving Dara was a very selfish move. By the way, if anybody does want to go on the Dandelion Dynasty subreddit, just know that the spoiler policy there is not great. So beware. But I disagree. I don't see Thera leaving Dara as a selfish thing. To me, it's a very courageous thing because here's this opportunity. No matter how small of a chance, here's this opportunity for her people to basically cut off, this multi-headed serpent from the other end, and like that would be a huge win for her people. What do you guys think?
I think she was almost not quite strong-armed into it, but she was kind of strong-armed into it by Talkfall to do this thing. I think she had selfish reasons to do it.
Okay.
I don't think she was selfish for doing it.
Okay. What can you expand more on, like, why you think she had selfish reasons to do it?
I think she just wants to know more about Liuku and their people.
Oh, interesting.
I think she just wants to learn, because I think that's kind of who she is, or she just wants to become a vessel for learning, kind of similar to Zomi, but I think there's a little bit there. But I
she
would
not
not
a grand
say,
adventure.
Yeah, I wouldn't say she is selfish for doing this thing. Partially because we have Talkwell being like, "Well, you guys won't get any of my Granafins if you don't go here and don't,
or
help
like
me
if you don't help
rebellion."
me.
Yeah,
I need to marry a princess of Dara, and it's
I got two
or
options.
Farah.
I got the child, or still a child but older.
But older, teenage. I guess he could have tried to gone for Gia. I don't know.
Hey,
Sean or Seth?
I need my thoughts to percolate a little more.
Like a fine espresso.
I blacked out. I heard Gia's name and just
Saw red.
Yeah.
Oh my god!
Started swinging.
I just can't stand her.
You don't get much Gia in these
Like
two
none.
parts. So
Yeah, but it just rankled by the fact that she's still alive.
Oh
It
man,
just makes me so sad.
Okay.
No, I like Thera a lot. I was most intrigued in part 2 by oh my goodness, I'm so bad with names. God that becomes a human.
Okay. It was
Oreo.
Lutho that
Lutho.
becomes Throyo.
Throyo. Yeah.
Gotcha.
I just loved that chapter. I think it was like chapter 12, maybe, where we're introduced to her.
The stowaway.
Yeah.
I completely forgot about him.
What?
Yeah. No, I loved it. I thought it was great. It's fun to think back on this section too, because I do think about like Thera and Talkfall's this wild military plan and how crazy it is, and the fact that they convinced a bull whale to like ram a ship, and it was a ton of fun. It's probably the longest action sequence in the series.
It was
so far.
great. Yeah,
It was
full of
pretty long.
tension. Yes, Sami coming up with the idea of singing a whale song to get the male crewmen to assist. Well, to get the crewmans to assist. But going back to Thera, what are your thoughts of her as a leader? So she's really on her own now. There's no Gia, Kuni is dead. She doesn't have Zomi. She's really like the leader here, along with Talkfall.
You could spin it any way. Kuni thought that she should lead, and she said, "I have a better idea." You could say like, "Oh, you're going against Kuni's wishes by abandoning your post that was assigned to you by this emperor that ruled justly." Essentially, it was like Dara's best emperor, I assume, ever. I would imagine. You could spin it like, "Oh, she's going against that," or he put all of the decision making onto her. Whether that means, okay, I'll stay on the throne, rule from Dara, or gonna go make this alliance happen with the Aegon. It's still essentially Thera leading and doing what she feels is best. So really, that aspect of the decision making, when you think of it with like, oh, is she betraying Kuni's decision or not? Really, however you spin it, she's not, in my opinion. But then if you look at the decision at face value, it's risky. I would like to see how it pays off first. I mean, the Aegon aren't the most powerful.
Sure.
in the world, it seems. I don't know how much she knew of that or not, but like they're a subdued people on the Scrublands. Like they already lost. They're scattered. They're weak.
But
They have
the plan was to give them technology from the Dara people, right? The more advanced weaponry.
Mm-hmm. And what do they get in return?
For
just
whom?
people
To win.
like manpower.
Yeah,
well,
it was
right. That's I mean they already vastly outnumber the Lyuku, so I don't know. Maybe not the best trade deal. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm actually landing on the fact of on the side of it being not the best decision.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I guess you could say that it was a bit selfish of her because she was running away she didn't want the burden, and like maybe she was afraid of being a leader of Dara in Dara.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
Like I don't know if I came to that conclusion at any point, but one could, I suppose.
But in terms of Thera as a leader, I think she is the most thoughtful. Because talking about nature versus nurture, it comes back to that theme again, where she's thinking about, growing up, what she's observed and learned from Gia, from Cooney, from Zomi, right? From the historians and the classics and all of that, and she's like questioning, like, what do I do? She's trying to draw wisdom from those that came before her, but then ultimately she has to realize that she is in uncharted territory. There is nobody here to make that decision for her. She has to make the decisions, and for better or for worse, right, she has to accept the consequences and the impacts that come with her decisions, which actually does bring me to the horses. I know you're like, how am I going to work in the horses? I really appreciate the respect that Liu incorporated into the story for the horses, because a lot of times in like military fantasy where horses are involved, the horses are just like numbers. They're not really real. They're just treated as like resources. But here, Thera says she thinks to herself, she agrees to the plan to send the horses to cross the desert basically once they arrive at the Liuku. And she insisted on coming on the expedition with Tokful. If she was going to send these horses who had crossed thousands of miles of water to die in a foreign desert, then she wanted to be there to look them in the eye and feel the full weight of her decision to doom them so that she might live. Boom.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that gets brought up. Maybe it's in this section, but or maybe she's just referencing the horses again, but I think it's in this section. Page 218 of what chapter is this? Chapter 12. Tokful and Thera are speaking. Thera says, "I won't be a hypocrite," she said slowly. "If there's going to be death because of me, whether it's the horses or you or anyone else, the least I can do is not look away. That would be barbaric." So
yeah.
And then they have like a mutual moment of understanding there and mutual respect. That touches on a couple things. First, your point about the horses and how it plays into Thera's leadership and character, but then it references the scene earlier where they're talking about the difference in cuisine between the two peoples.
Great scene.
The sponge.
Yeah, the sponge, which is then shortly thereafter revealed to be, we're eating raw brain here. The Aegon are pursuing the point that like it's okay to eat raw brain, especially if it's still pumping blood or whatever they say. And they talk about how they prepare their food, what they think about food, and they say, it's better to confront what you're doing because and like live with that reality. That's better than turning a blind eye to it, pretending that all is well. And the fact that Thera was able to reference that conversation, he was like, everyone was there for that conversation. The fact that she was able to reference that for this scene was, I just thought, a really good point of writing, a really good moment for Thera, a good moment between Thera and Tokful. Liu's always like self-referencing his work, but he's like really good about keeping track of what he's written. I don't know if he plans ahead of time to do these things, or he's writing and he's like, now I'm gonna call back to this scene here. But that's like all over this series, and he's always really good about it.
I think Liu is quite a methodical writer.
Yeah.
And he probably takes notes as opposed to Erickson, who doesn't have notes. Anyway.
No.
I think there's a quote for Erickson where it's like, some things have changed, and he went, I forgot about it. If I remember right.
Yeah. What are timelines?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like two like races that like have very similar names, and like someone asked him like, what's the deal with that? He's like, oh, maybe I just misspelled it. I don't know. He like accidentally switched the spelling like halfway through.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't really remember.
Going back to Thera, and I think on the question of her being a leader, I think she has like the capacity to probably be the greatest leader that we've seen in this series so far.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she can surpass Cooney, who I think, to Cooney's credit, I think he is the right ruler for the wrong time, where he is just trying to make these changes. And I think Thera is the one that can make these changes in Dara that it needs to see. And maybe the Liuku coming is the catalyst for Dara changing for the better. And I think this comes down to her kind of being a vessel for learning, where she is willing to be wrong. She is willing to, kind of like Cooney. I think it was mentioned in this section where Tokval is asking her, like, why aren't you making these like military decisions?
Oh, yeah.
When they were about to attack the ship with the barnacle. And she's like, they know more than me. Like, I am not the person I don't know anything what they're talking about.
Yeah, I have the quote here. She says, I'm no war leader nor tactician. It would be the height of foolish arrogance for me to lead where I'm blind. Knowing when to be resolute in my own will and when to take counsel is the most important thing my father taught me.
Yeah. And it's like with Cooney, he surrounded himself by people with, like, the reason why he was kind of so successful is because he knew how to surround himself with people who could accomplish his goals.
Yes.
And the issue with Mata is Mata was so strong-headed to admit that he was wrong. And that's kind of why Dara started to fall under his rule. And there is that in Thera, where she's like, I don't know what we're doing. I just know I surround myself with people I trust to make the correct decisions. And I will kind of take ownership of those.
Yeah.
I do think that's the best thing Cooney has done or did.
The theme of different types of leadership, which styles are effective when, and whether or not a leader can be flexible and adapt their leadership style when needed. That's huge throughout this entire series. And then that goes into the nature versus nurture, the storytelling. Very excited to see how this all plays out in the rest of the series. In terms of other things, are there other topics or scenes or characters? We haven't, I mean, Seth, you touched on Throyo before. I would like to go back to Throyo because it's such a fascinating sequence where Throyo, we get a perspective of somebody who is basically a blank slate, right? Lutho has become this mortal girl. Why Lutho chooses a mortal girl to become, I'm not quite sure, but it does have some advantages where, like, Throyo seems unassuming, not threatening.
Better than a shrimp.
Yeah. To be more innocent, and they really don't know much, so they're hungry for learning, right? And through learning how to become human, how to become immortal, or I should say how to be immortal, that experience was fascinating to read, being fed by rats and understanding what, like, clothing is, blanket is, food, death, and language. So Throyo not understanding their languages and having to learn it gives both the Dara people and the Aegon people an opportunity to learn each other's languages, be more open, not being so stubborn and less embarrassed to fail. Because when you're learning, especially learning a new language, like you're gonna make mistakes. And one of the hardest things is your pride, right? Looking stupid. And Thorio gives them this way to get over their pride, basically, and learn together. Other thoughts on Thorio?
I do love a being coming to existence like at an accelerated rate trope. It's always good stuff.
Cool
It was
idea.
always one-off chapter.
Mm.
I'm sad I completely forgot about her.
How could you?
It's been a while.
I know. What about Seth? Other thoughts about Thorio?
Yeah, Thorio's interesting to me. Probably one of the most interesting characters in the book so far. I would say I'm the most curious about where Thorio's story will end up. You know,
It is
Yeah.
Thorio, I think. Thorio. I knew I had it right at first.
Full disclosure, I don't know how to pronounce any of these. Thorio, Luthu, whatever.
Lutho.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just very curious. I think Thorio is
Yep.
Thor-yo. It's like Thor, yo.
Thorio is musing a lot about like the natures of gods and stuff, and they're learning a lot of the history here in part 2. And there's a sense of dramatic irony there, right? Because Lutho / Thorio is a god or was a god. It's a little unclear whether godhood is still, or remnants of it are still there. But it's interesting. I want to believe that everything goes well there. I just have a feeling in my gut that Liu is gonna hurt my feelings with this character somehow. So
he's always going to hurt our feelings.
yeah, and there's nothing we really read in part 2 that makes like it's just a gut feeling. Like,
yeah,
I feel like I get attached to some of these characters, and then Liu's just like, I'm gonna make their life terrible or kill them, or
he doesn't hold back much.
No, this book in particular just feels dark.
There are times that you forget that you're reading from Ken Liu, and then something happens, and you're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's right. Everything's not going to end happily.
I think that Thorio's section is also like a cool musing on language, right? Like, obviously, super attached to language. What's that mean for like the development of someone, right? Like, you have this kind of like blank slate of a person, you know, and it's really just super fascinating to think about. And I like that Liu doesn't I don't feel like he's led us to any particular answer, right? Like, I feel like he's musing on it as well. And
he certainly does provide enough different perspectives.
Yeah, and it feels like he lays it out, and then it kind of lets you come to your own conclusion.
There's no like clear like what side of this conflict that he thinks is the right one.
Right.
Yeah, and I really appreciate when authors have like a lot of, there's a lot of ambiguity, right? Or there's a lot of just letting people come to their own conclusions, which I think he's a master at. And I just want to touch on something Sean said earlier, is just that I am a huge fan of these callbacks he does to things that he's written previously. And I think he's an absolute master at it. Super satisfying to read.
Yeah.
And he just weaves it kind of seamlessly, like all through the story, right? But in a way where I feel like he's not bashing us over the head with it necessarily. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. Just a point on the writing. I think he's phenomenal at that. So
the methodical way that he writes and the planning that he does, it's fairly intricate, like weaving in the different references or plot lines, some things that he mentions once and then later on you realize the significance of it. And sometimes it's over and over again. It's not, but it's fresh. It's refreshing because the context changes. Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
I have high hopes for Thorio also. I want to mention, I hope she's utilized well. Liu hasn't led me astray so far, so I have faith. But Thorio is a good kind of, I mean, obviously she's a blank slate, but this is a blank slate that is coming into existence, surrounded by those of Dara, some Aegon people as well, Lyuku in a way, but mostly just Aegon and Dara, those of Dara. Daranese? I don't know what we're supposed to call them.
Darin.
Okay.
Yeah, Darin.
But she's kind of like a, I don't know the right term, but kind of what we were talking about earlier with how it's hard to understand the other side without living their life. She is coming to existence, living both lives at the same time. So she can kind of be that person that can process all the information, process how these two different peoples differ, how they're the same. Maybe can be that that help or that like melding transition between the two peoples. If she plays a prominent role, but she's positioned to where she can be that person to have a perspective from both sides.
It's the when you talk about the nature versus nurture, right? She is the embodiment of just pure nature because she hasn't been nurtured either way. And then she comes into existence, comes and encounters them. The stories that they tell, what information they impart on her, the reasoning, and the way that she's able to question objectively.
Yeah.
Kind of holds up a mirror to all those people and just, poses the question like, but why is that? Why do you think this way? Why not this other way? Right. And helps them break out of the nurture of their civilization and their society.
Yeah, hopefully the people around her will take a second from the plotting and warring to realize what they have in front of them.
I mean, can you imagine Thorio and Gia like having a conversation?
I would like that to happen.
That would be really interesting.
Seth
I don't know if we're gonna get it, but
I am curious what will happen if Thorio goes across the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like back to Dara.
Yeah, I wonder if she turns back into Lutho or because that's
just
kind of
like
what
face the mist.
Yeah, I am curious about that.
That's a good point. Or like, will she just die?
Yeah.
What happens then?
I love the pacing of how they find her too, because it's like immediately after the naval battle, which I think we should go over more because there's a lot of stuff in there. Because immediately after the naval battle, which is the majority of part 2, I suppose. Yeah. And as Seth alluded to, really from like page 1, where the Grenifins from the Lyuku ship are launched at what's that ship? What's the ship's name that Thera's on? The flagship.
Something Sorrows. The Dissolver of Sorrows.
Dissolver of Sorrows, yeah.
Great name.
From the second the Grenifins are launched to the Dissolver of Sorrows, that's the start of the battle. And the battle doesn't end until the Dissolver of Sorrows is sailing away from the Wall of Storms. So that encompasses the quote-unquote downtime, encompasses them setting up this shadow puppet play. It includes them...
Talk about storytelling.
Awesome.
Yeah, right. It includes them performing the play. It includes calling the crew ins, or the whales, I mean, or maybe both, I forget. It includes the whales, especially that big one, the bull bashing the Lyuku ship. It includes everything going on the Lyuku ship where they invade it through the bottom of the hull.
Yeah, like a barnacle attached to a whale.
Yeah, and they plant explosives. There's the whole drama in there with Toof and I forget.
Toof and Radia.
Yeah, it involves all that. It's like as Seth said, it's really just all one long battle with a lot of different elements at play. I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
and yeah, I assume you guys have thoughts about the more specific things that happen in those scenes, or maybe not. Let me know.
It seems like the city ship had like a Titanic design with the different compartments.
Yeah.
And you have to flood enough of them in order for it to sink.
Imagine Mappaderi just didn't want to live forever. Like this series wouldn't have happened. At least not after book 1. Book 1's the whole series.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have gone more into the rebellion of post Kunigara starting to reign or something like that.
I guess.
I liked the fight scene. I just felt like, as a guy who enjoys military history a lot and stuff, I was like, this is...
You gotta suspend belief.
Yeah, the amount of variables in this plan is staggering, right? Like the amount of points of critical failure that could happen are like
It worked
immense.
out.
Yeah, at a certain point, I just,
You're right.
like Sean said, I just suspended my disbelief and had fun with it. But initially, I was kind of like, what are we doing? But it was fun. It was super cool. And I like a great growing moment for a lot of characters, right? Thorio, for Thera, for Tokval, right? Yeah, they're all, yeah, because it says in this section, right, that Tokval, not really much of a warrior, right? He's just doing kind of what he thinks a warrior should be doing. Which is
suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, like suicidal last
running in, sword swinging.
Yeah. He acts first, thinks later.
Yeah, and it's I like the balance between him and Thera in this throughout the whole battle, right? And she's constantly trying to reel him in, and he's like, "You have to make a decision, right?" And no, it was good. It was a cool section and a lot of fun. Maybe not for the Lyuku necessarily, but
and a lot of Darn people die. The Marines, the Marines that stayed behind, waiting for Tokval. That was heartbreaking.
I'm also happy, like as an aside, that Tooth and Radia lived.
That was up with them.
Their Garf and drowning was
so sad,
brutal,
very sad. I thought to the last second it was going to survive.
I know, and I'll be like, oh, they have a Grenifin like on their side.
I know, and we get the POV from that Grenifin too. We get like whale POVs. It's all over the place.
Oh my God.
But yeah,
I forgot about the POV.
Yeah.
It's like, boom, headache. Okay, let me shake it off. All right, I'm ready. Let's go again. The scene where Tokval first meets Toaf and Radia, that was a great portrayal of the individual versus group dynamic, where they're like, oh, you're Aegon, you're Lyuku. We're supposed to hate each other. We're supposed to kill each other. But then individually, like, but we have this kinship. Because Toaf and Radia are like, oh, we can speak the same language. And Tokval's like, oh, it feels nice to hear my own language. But we're supposed to be enemies. So that dynamic was interesting to read and I think really well done.
You guys ever think about how like similar the Aegon and the Lyuku are?
Yeah.
They're hardly a different people, but they're mortal enemies.
Yeah. They're
essentially just like different tribes.
Right? There's something there.
Yeah, I agree.
It's kind of just like the history of the conflict between those two people coming forward till now without any real attempt at resolution or peace. It's just like, all right, whenever this started, it's always been like, all right, we have to subdue them, take them over, take our land back.
I mean, it comes down to there's limited resources and each side wants what the others have.
Yeah.
Why can't they share? Did they not go to kindergarten class and learn how to share,
Well, nature versus nurture, right? There wasn't a whole lot of nurture, I don't think.
For sharing.
For the scrublands, yeah.
And they don't want to farm anyway, so it doesn't help.
Are there other themes, or are we ready to close out?
I think we do just need to, unless anyone doesn't have thoughts, we have to talk about when Thera and Tokval reach Tokval's father's settlement, right?
Oh, the uncle. Okay.
Volyu.
Yeah. So Thera, Tokval, and gang, and it was a brutal journey.
Back across the desert, yeah.
Yeah, to get to the
drinking their own urine.
Tokval's tribe. Yes.
Drinking their distilled urine, which Thorio comes up with.
The realization that they can distill pee into drinkable water. Another example of Liu showing, the innovation, discovery and innovation in the journey of human progress. Anything in particular you want to highlight in the encounter?
There's definitely a line, but it's more near the end of the encounter for Thera, where I think it's one of those moments where she's realizing something about herself, and how she differs from the Aegon and Lyuku, where she says, what fools are we to read every gesture and motion, every bite and sip like logograms carved on a page, when the very raw sensations themselves are miraculous. What fools we are to hesitate over the meaning of every step, when it is a wonder just to wail, to breathe, to be free and alive. And I think this is, I'm trying to remember where this is happening, where I think they're all arguing over something and then assuming the other people they have wrong intentions.
Mm.
I thought that was just kind of a big moment kind of for her, where she's realizing I need to be more flexible. We all need to be more flexible because we're too focused on assuming the other people are wrong about something to better ourselves, basically.
Mm-hmm. Similarly, she says something to Thera says something to Tokval, where, Tokval is kind of like stuck in, well, the Aegon are so weak, like how are we supposed to beat the Lyuku?
Yeah.
And Thera says, before Tenryou Roatin, the Lyuku did not enslave the Aegon. Before the coming of the city ships, the people of the scrublands did not dream of conquest across the seas. Even stories that have been told for millennia can change, and I'm certain that we can change this story.
Nice.
Yeah.
Tokval's mother, Sulian?
Yeah.
It's like Soliu or something.
Sulian, yeah, Sulian. You can get that one from Thorio.
I like her a lot, actually. I just thought the dynamic between her and Volyu is a cool glimpse into the Aegon society, and the struggles that they're dealing with. It felt good to get a little bit more context to what Thera and Tokval are walking into. And I liked the meeting between her and Thera, where she's essentially feeling Thera out.
Yeah.
She's being
she wanted Thera to be real with her.
Yeah. And I like her character.
Thera approaches it like, okay, I need to lay down the positives for this alliance, essentially. But then she was like, oh God, I was approaching this as an emperor, while, Sulian, she just wants to hear that I love her son. Like, I should be talking to her as my future mother-in-law, not like a leader of the Aegon or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sulian calls her out about it, when she's... And I just like that. I like the bluntness about it. It was good.
You know how there's a reputation, especially in epic fantasy and older epic fantasy, where male writers don't write female characters very well?
Yeah.
Liu is just... he takes a lot of care to write his female characters and really flesh them out, make them realistic and not like stereotypical or monotone.
Yeah.
And in this, in part 1, which we didn't really talk about, is he writes about abortion. Like, he writes about Godstan's experience where, she gets impregnated by Dathema, the Dara conqueror, and she was given a choice. Like, she had a choice to either keep the baby or abort it. And for their society, the norm would be to abort the fetus. And she chooses the opposite. And, there's the backlash about that. But he writes about that experience. He didn't need to necessarily. I mean, sure, you could say that was a plot device in order for Godstan to be exiled, but there could have been other ways to exile her. And so it just felt refreshing to read a more realistic female experience.
And I think he got criticism from Grace of Kings for having
it's so funny thinking about it now.
Women, and it's like, I mean, that we focused on 2 characters for that book, and they're both men. So it's like,
sure, yeah.
I think the people who have that criticism should keep reading.
Yeah. Yeah, because right now, who is really all in power? Thera is leading with the Aegon expedition, and Vadyu is leading the Lyuku, conquering Dara, and Gia, is the regent.
It's a woman's world.
I think it even goes, his writing of women go beyond just writing them as people, because I think going back to this conversation between Thera and Tokval's mother, where it's like him being able to write down the understanding of she wants to make sure her son is loved and cared for, I think is something authors probably wouldn't even think about doing.
Right. I was thinking that too. Yeah, you don't get mention of that, or that conversation doesn't go that way with a worse author, and most authors are worse.
I promise we're not just a Ken Liu love fest. Okay, so you got to throw out some criticisms here.
We got to get Ash in here to like fight us on what we think, you know.
For that whole section, though, I mean, I'll just briefly mention how there was a bit of tension with how Tokfal's uncle strong-armed Tokfal into taking Thera as his bride and to rule, to solidify the alliance that way. Thera ends up circumventing it, which is nice. Good soft moment between her and Tokfal. They kind of strengthen their relationship that way, so that was cool.
I am curious.
Yeah.
For Volyu basically trying to steal Thera away from Tokfal. Yeah. When reading these interactions, did you guys foresee that? Because for me, the entire time I'm reading this, I'm like, yeah, he's just gonna marry her. People are misunderstanding what's happening here. Even though it's not explicitly said, I'm like, no, like this is what's gonna happen.
It was quite clear. I actually thought it was going to be worse. I thought it was going to be Volyu was actually going to like have his way with Thera when he comes into the tent to talk to her. I was like bracing myself and had a sigh of relief when that's not what happened. I'm really glad it didn't go that way.
I don't think that's Ken Liu.
Well, the way that
happens, but it's more of a like we wouldn't see it happen.
Well, the way that conversation was going was basically like, and it was all innuendos and you know, vague veiling, where Volyu was like, oh, you know, I get to basically get it first crack at, you know, the horse or whatever, or riding the Garinafin, whatever it was. Yeah.
And Thera's like, she has to politically play out, like, what do I do with this Toluyasu? You know, like, she didn't want to drink it, so she dumps it. Does this whole
Kyofir thing.
Oh yeah. So sorry. Yeah, the Kyofir. That was good too.
All right.
I think we did it again.
We did have some predictions that was thrown out.
I remember mine.
You remember yours? Okay.
Yeah.
So
Me too.
Any predictions? Any predictions for the rest of the book or part 3?
Mine was that, if I remember correctly, that we wouldn't see Dara at all.
Okay. No,
that we
Dara
would just stay in the Scrublands. I believe that's what my prediction was.
Okay. Somebody said, I don't remember who. Somebody said that Thoryu, maybe this was me. Thoryu is going to go nuclear. Gods and humans are one and the same. Do they deserve help? She cares about the lives of the animals. Maybe that was Seth, actually. That sounds like something Seth would say.
Saying Chico's nuclear sounds like a Seth.
I feel attacked. That was what I said. I still kind of feel that way. So
okay.
I predicted that we would see spaceships by the end of the series proper.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you think we're gonna go to space? Okay.
We're going to space, and then we also had predictions on. Do you have anything right now, Panda?
I said that we were going to see something like the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
so this is like a retelling of human progression,
like cars.
Yeah, like actual. I mean, they do have airships. They do have like these things. So maybe the Industrial Revolution already have it, but it's not quite the same. Not at that same scale, maybe. Or I could just be completely
wrong. We also made
wrong.
predictions on the titles of the parts. So part 2 is Fresh Sprouts.
Mm-hmm.
And part 3 is Rain-Lashed Saplings. You don't really need to be a genius to figure out what might be going on there, but these sprouts are going to go through it.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
And 4 is Sun-Kissed Bows.
Yes.
Which is interesting.
Hopefully it does. Well, Yeti did say that this book ends unexpectedly, like at a point where you're like, what? So
I'm missing his face trying to hold a smile back from us making these predictions.
I know.
Yeah. He'll be back for part 4 discussion.
All right. So that is our re-recording for The Veiled Throne parts 1 and 2. Apologies again, but we hope you still had fun and got something out of this discussion. And part 3 will be coming fairly soon. With that, until next time, bye.
Good night.
See ya.
bye, everybody.